Hello and welcome to the Permaculture Herbalism segment of the Elder Tree podcast. I am your host, Tennille Christensen from Earth Mama, where I teach people how to thrive and get skilled for sustainability. As an educator, kitchen witch, and plant lover, I welcome you to tune in as I interview permaculturalists from around the world. We will learn holistic ways of integrating plants into our homes, gardens, and communities for healing. Together, we will explore the art and science of this regenerative design system and harvest the collective wisdom. Permaculture offers a pathway to empower people to develop their lifestyles and landscapes. So let's discover how to grow and know plants with a purpose. In this interview, I had the privilege of speaking with Erin Young, and we covered many diverse topics from sustainable funerals and natural burial grounds to her work in sociocracy and the social permaculture realm. Some really cool projects that she's involved in and who she works with in terms of her sociocracy teachings and trainings, and some fun conversations around the festival scene and her workshops in those spaces. So Erin is currently working with Earth Funerals and is supporting them in their decision-making using sociocracy. She holds a Bachelor of Environmental Engineering and is also a certified human potential coach. So Erin's based in Kabi Kabi country near Eumundi on the Sunshine Coast in southeast Queensland, and she works alongside permaculture pioneer Robin Clayfield, delivering workshops in social permaculture, some of which I have attended that I highly recommend. So what Erin's really passionate about is working with organizations and individuals with developmental coaching, consulting, and training in collaborative decision-making and governance. So we hope that you get to enjoy this interview from a space of understanding how, as a permaculturalist, you can have plants growing in your garden, but it expands more, so that connection to nature and the understanding of natural processes can lead in this journey into more broader areas of permaculture and our roles within it. And Erin is a great example and role model of how she ties in her understanding of natural processes and whole systems thinking into a way of communicating, and her language of explaining somewhat complex examples of working in organizations differently from the top-down approach and in a more holistic way by leaning into examples of nature. So grab a cup of herbal tea, maybe make it a lemongrass one if you've got some growing in the garden. And I hope you enjoy this interview as much as I did. Welcome, Erin. Thank you so much for joining me in this space today. It's a real honor to be sharing an interview with you after a few years of working with you in the past and being involved in some trainings with you teaching me in certain workshops and trainings. So it's a great opportunity to share all of your gifts here in this space with all of our listeners.
Yeah, thanks, Tennille. It's so lovely to be here in this space with you, with this wonderful podcast compilation of really interesting people, and with you who does good work in the world. So I'm excited to see where we go.
Awesome. Well, let's jump straight into it. I know we've got quite a bit to cover today because what you offer is quite broad and an interesting topic for people, maybe something completely new that they don't know about. But first of all, let's go through, our listeners are here because they are interested in community and they're interested in plants and permaculture. So can you share, why is permaculture an important aspect of your life?
Okay, so permaculture is an important aspect of my life. Since it first dropped into my reality, which was in 2010, so 13 years ago, I was traveling overseas and I had the opportunity to do a permaculture design course and in Portugal. And in that 2 weeks of journeying with that, I felt like I learned more than I did in the 4 years of my bachelor's degree in environmental engineering. And I felt like I'd learned more than I had in any other space. And it suddenly unlocked me to how life actually works. And that has been incredibly empowering and inspiring and life giving for me in so many ways. And I've been able to take it into places that really inspire me and find my niche inside of it. So that's the big broad aspect of permaculture. And, you know, on the ground level, permaculture works with patterns that sustain life. So if we are growing our food and organizing our people and our finances and our fibers and our, you know, any of our resources with these living patterns, then life can only keep regenerating. And that's what I'm about in this life. So that's why permaculture is important to me.
Oh, that's such a beautiful answer and so deep and broad. Thank you for giving that perspective. And it's just so amazing that you did 4 years and have a degree and you felt that you got so much out of that intensive 2 week course and the path that it's put you on since. So I've been following you and learning from you because you're very much work in the social permaculture realm. And I know a lot of people come in and learn about this design science because they want to live more sustainably or they want to grow food. Quite often those are sort of the entry points. But you've really taken on your role and projects in the social permaculture realm. So I'd love for you to share some about that in this interview. But just bringing it back to the plants for now, how do you integrate plants, and specifically from a herbalism perspective, so for health and well-being, how do you do that either in your home, in your garden, or in your community?
So I'll just say that the broad way that I use plants in my life is very much as analogies to help people understand invisible systems that we're going to talk more about how we socially design our human organization. So I use plants to describe what's going on when we're making decisions together because plants are tangible. But on the ground level, I have plants around me I live in the forest in the Sunshine Coast hinterland, and although the sunlight isn't super abundant here, the herbs tend to like to grow here, which is lovely. So I have taro and goticola growing under my outdoor sink, and motherwort's just kind of coming through and doing her own thing in the garden after I brought her into my system a few years ago. And you know, I have my collection of plants and herbs that tend to their own cycles. I don't kind of micromanage them too much, and it's beautiful to see that. And I get to use them and work with them. I'm not super deep, I guess, in a as much as I know it can be, and I'd like to be, in blending in the planets and those planetary patterns. I'd love to know more about that. So I just kind of work with plants on a very mundane, without that being boring, just on a day-to-day level, them growing in my garden and intuitively kind of going to them when I know that they're useful to me.
Mm. Yeah, that's lovely. And we've in the past spoken about your beautiful place there in Kabi Kabi country and the realities of south facing slopes and living in the forest. And you know, we can't all just, it's not actually sustainable to cut down a forest to grow ourselves a garden. Um, and that there is actually, you know, a lot of herbs and plants that can be just grown in close to the house and absorb the water under your sink. I love that. Yeah. And yeah, so it's exciting to hear how you bring in plants figuratively to educate people, because it is something that we can all relate to. So in terms of what you've got growing at home, do you have a favorite plant that you can recommend as a must-have to include in a home garden, and why?
I think I'm going to go with one of the first plants, that edible plants that was gifted to me when I was a girl living at my parents' place in Brisbane, South Side, and that's lemongrass. The good old stock standard lemongrass. It was given to me by a neighbor who moved in up the street, and he said, "Here, put this in your garden," and I did, and it smelt amazing. And that started my relationship with lemongrass, and having worked with permaculture and understanding integrated systems, lemongrass is one of those plants that, while it's meaningful for us physically in supporting flow through our body and enlivening and all those sort of things, and enlivening the spirit simply through its smell. It is also really powerful and useful for the garden, chop and drop, just creating a mulch layer, creating a barrier for things when it's needed, creating even habitat. And I think the thing I love about it is it's so giving in in how easy it is to break off a bit of lemongrass and plant it somewhere else, and it will keep growing. And it's so giving in its scent as well. And I love lemongrass for those reasons.
Me too. Yeah, thank you for bringing that plant forward. It
Mm.
sometimes often gets forgotten, but it
Mm.
has such a beautiful scent. And like lemon balm, the Melissa
Mm.
officinalis, I love that too, but it's definitely an annual in the tropics here,
Mhm.
and it's something that needs to be really babied. But the
Mm.
lemongrass is something, well, nurtured
Mm.
carefully, whereas the lemongrass is so robust, and it still gives, when you make a cup of tea, it's almost very similar to drinking lemon balm, but
Mhm.
it's got all of those other ecosystem functions which we look
Mm.
forward to in permaculture, don't we? It's not just about how a plant can be healing for us, but it's also looking at how can it heal the land and all the other
Mm.
parts that it plays.
Yeah.
Uh, Someone once told me that if you plant lemongrass around a vegetable garden, I mean, it's
Mhm.
great to stop weeds from growing and it fills that niche, but it apparently stops snakes. I was like,
Mhm.
okay, great. I'm gonna do it solely because I don't want snakes in my garden. But it didn't
Yeah.
work. I literally saw a snake like moving over the top of the lemongrass. Okay, well, that was been debunked. So if you
You know,
read that anywhere, don't believe it.
have you ever woven with wet lemongrass?
No, I haven't. I've done lamandra, but not
Mm.
lemongrass. Yeah, that would
Yeah,
be a nice
I
one.
actually haven't made cordage or, tried to weave it, but I think I'm going to give it a go because I love to harvest fibers as well from the garden. And I think lemongrass, it might be able to do something. I don't think it's quite a lamandra, but maybe it can do something nice.
Yeah, especially if it has a chance to dry out.
Mm-hmm.
Here it tends to really, like the under part of it in the forest here really just breaks down and becomes a mulch. So the soil underneath
Mm-hmm.
lemongrass here is just so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, in the dry season, I can cut it back and use it as a mulch, like a chop and drop in the vegetable garden, and you can smell all of the oils releasing. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like it works with as a natural pest management,
Mm-hmm.
integrated pest management system. Just as it's got high volatile oils, so it's
Yeah.
just got that extra oomph than normal mulch generally
Yeah.
has. But I
Yeah.
might weave that into. I'll see. I'll give it a test and see, because that would be fun to do with our Nature Kids group. Is
Mm-hmm.
use the lemongrass and bring that smell into it, because lamender just doesn't have the smell.
No.
Yeah, an extra sensory experience.
Yeah.
Yay. All right. Well, can you give an example of when you've utilized plants to improve your health, and what was that experience?
Well, I mean, I think the last most intensive time I've used plants for my health was going through an Ayurvedic spring cleanse. And that's, using plants from another place, the Indian subcontinent primarily. Why I mention this particular experience is because I just so appreciate the deep lineage of plant use in
Mm,
Ayurveda, and I really honor those deep traditions that have and still do revere plants and use them technically and skillfully to support us in our lives. So, I love a good Ayurvedic spring cleanse because it's so sensory. I'm rubbing sesame oil on my skin that's infused with different plants, and I'm, swishing coconut oil around in my mouth, and I'm taking different herbs in capsules every day that's cleaning out my insides. And so it's just such a thorough experience. So I like that, sort of complexity way. And then on a very simple way, this feels quite basic as well, but the balm of a good herbal tea
mm,
that's appropriate to where you're at in life just goes such a long way. And I know that they're so underestimated by people, as our culture is so attuned to the hard hits of coffee and caffeine and things like that. And I'm sure listeners very much understand the subtle beauty of the herbs when they're in a simple infusion. And so I've loved discovering that, and there's a lot more discovery for me to do with that as well. So yeah, that's it.
mm. Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, so you've gone like really in depth, a lot of plants with the Ayurvedic practice, and then yeah, really broad with the just the simplicity of tea. That comes up quite a lot in our self care episodes with
Mm-hmm.
Jessica, and it's so accessible to everybody. There's so many
Mm-hmm.
plants we can just walk out, and even if you don't have a big garden, there's plants you can pop in a little pot or find out and about. You can join a community garden and have access to them. That's
Yeah.
so cool. Well, thanks for sharing that. So, what is alive and thriving in your life right now? Please share.
Okay, well, the thing I'm focusing on the most right in this time in my life is working with a project that is kind of new to me, and it's kind of new to the world as well. It's in a startup phase. And this project is setting up natural burial grounds and sustainable funerals around Australia. It's called Earth Funerals. And I've been brought into the project because I'm a carrier of the ways of a thing called sociocracy, which is a form of collaborative governance and collaborative decision making in groups and organizations. And they're really dedicated to working in a way that empowers all people inside of the organization to um, be leaders and to be designing how the organization runs, because an organization is similar to an organism. It needs to be alive, and when all of its parts are involved, it's going to be the most alive. So that's kind of what I get to help the people at Earth Funerals do. And it's very small at this point. Our first location for the sustainable funerals is in Melbourne, and we have a small team of funeral directors there. So I get to work with them and support them to find ways to help their work and their life be more easeful so that they can do a really great job with the people that they're working with. And as the project grows, we'll get deeper and deeper and deeper into the sustainable aspects. And this year, hopefully, a natural burial ground will come into our fold and we'll start to really activate that side of things. So yeah, that's primarily my world right now.
That is such a wonderful. I'm so glad to hear that this work that you've been learning and teaching in sociocracy is being adopted and put into these newly evolving organizations, and also that Earth Burials is doing the work that they're doing. That's such a, I think I said the other day, it's like innovative, but it's also ancient. Like it seems like going back to how things were. And I had a look at the website. I'll put that in the show notes. I didn't realize. I mean, it seemed all quite very challenging when I managed the death of my grandmother, and just, it was such a bizarre experience. And it got me thinking a lot about, the commercial industry side of things, and how it's just another part of the bigger picture design that's not actually working for people. And and the other day I watched a beautiful film called Zen and the Art of Dying, and I'll pop that in the show notes as well. But if anybody's interested in things like that and death dueling and sustainable burials, then those links there will be really valuable. But in terms of sociocracy, like I've hung out with you in some training sessions and just to do my basic training in that, and then was lucky enough for you to say yes when I invited you up here to Far North Queensland to teach our community here. I think we did, was it a 1 or 2 day workshop? And we had about 20 or 30 people.
I can't remember if it was 1 or 2 days, but it was that sort of length.
Yeah.
I remember it was the middle of winter.
Yeah. It was awesome. It was an intense, because it's like a whole new way. It's like kind of when you do your PDC, Permaculture Design Course, it's like putting on permagoggles. And even though it makes so much sense, it's like a rewiring of our brains. So I'd love for you to share sort of with our audience what social permaculture is, and what, sociocracy as a tool, like why is it different to the status quo of normal organizations? Because I think most people can relate to being in some committee or work environment where it's just really painful to sit in meetings. So can you share some light on all of that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to start with from where you just kind of took us, which is how much of a rewiring it can feel like to do this work. And I suspect listeners can appreciate a similar sort of thing when you start to really appreciate the language of plants and how they speak and work with us in their own intelligent way. The world becomes a bit different, and it starts to become much more enchanted. And when one has that perspective and that relationship with life, the enchanted relationship, it's also easy to see when people are disenchanted and live that sort of reality where a tree is a resource of wood to chop down and utilize, or the subtle understory herbs are not even seen because people don't have an appreciation for that layer and that nuance. And so walking through the world and living in the world with that level of kind of subtle detail is quite a powerful way to be, and it's a dance in its own way.
Mm.
So linking that into social permaculture and sociocracy, social permaculture is the place I've walked inside of my permaculture practice. When I first discovered permaculture, I was driven by the need to connect with food provenance and be connected to the generation of food in a healthy way. And quickly I discovered the social dimensions of permaculture, and it was really in my environmental engineering days that I realized it wasn't the planet that was creating the problems that we needed to engineer against. It was the way people were thinking and designing our actions and our behaviors that were impacting on the planet. And so that really opened up the door into wanting to work with humans and help humans be better organized and have better tools to navigate this living world that we are in. And that includes humans as an organism of this planet as well. So social permaculture really opened its doors to me, and I've worked with Robin Clayfield, who's a permaculture elder and pioneer who's specializes in social permaculture. She's based in Maleny, southeast Queensland, and I really met her early on in my journey with this, and she's been so generous and kind to offer me insight and opportunities to learn from her and work with her in social permaculture. And we now work side by side, which is such a beautiful honor. And Robin's really helped open up my heart and my mind to how to apply the principles of permaculture, these living systems, ways of creating integrated realities, to how we share information in a way that appeals to the diversity of human brains. That the principle in permaculture of use and value diversity. When we apply that to human systems, we see, especially in the times we're in, we're really the collective conversation is more and more becoming one that's non-binary, and I think that's really what social permaculture offers and encourages without using that specific language. It's a non-binary reality. It's a one that relies on the diversity of ways that we think and feel and interact, and using that diversity of the way our brains work in very different ways from each other as an ecology to organize in a healthful living way. And so there's lots of different tools to apply that kind of can be direct crossover from a classic land-based permaculture practice with zones and sectors and things like that. And then getting into the more nuanced stuff that you don't necessarily have a land-based partner with. And I very much see sociocracy as an expression of social permaculture. It fits inside of the umbrella of social permaculture. And back in the days when I first came to Sociocracy in 2012, and I first learnt it with Gina Price and John Shinnerer, who are now my colleagues in the Sociocracy consulting group. One of them shared with me that sociocracy is permaculture for people. And that really lit me up big time. And I could feel the sparks of excitement kind of flaming inside. And I've really deepened into how to use the technology of integrated systems to specifically how we make decisions together as a collective. And when you think about it, we have to do this all the time. And we kind of don't have a choice because humans are a social species. We're always making decisions together. Sociocracy offers a way of doing that in a power with reality rather than in a power over reality.
Mm.
Mm.
Oh, that is so rich and well said, and just makes me want to come down to your next workshop again, which would be my third social permaculture weekend, which the last two times were just so much fun. Like, it just activated my brain so much and my heart. It's like really, it's like coming back home to like, oh yes, if we all just were able to communicate this way, if we were all able to come to decisions in this empowered way, we would get so much done. But it really is like there's processes to learn, and I love that. Like, I loved what was one that I use all the time? Oh, dotocracy.
Mm-hmm.
I just love that. I bring that into my PDCs to have, like such a big group of people come together to define and make decisions on multiple options. It's such a valuable tool. And I guess I'm not going to go into too much of that now explanation, but if people want those kind of processes and tools, then I highly recommend going to yours and Robin's Social Permaculture course. So I'll pop that link in the show notes as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's so much there's so much to cover in that. That's what would you like to share with people in terms of the governance and the power, like the pattern that you've noticed in the difference between the people, the organizations, or I know that you work with businesses as well, even small businesses. How, and because you're also a human potential coach, so you're working with individuals as well as small businesses and organizations.
Mm-hmm.
What's the sort of like outcome and the difference that you see in people, or, on the macro and the micro, of engaging in sociocracy or social permaculture, decision making and governance, in comparison to that power over sort of structure?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. I think it's the difference between a monoculture and a polyculture.
Mm.
Where in land-based agricultural systems, a monoculture is just rows and rows and rows and rows and rows of corn, or any other crop that requires a lot of energy input, a lot of applications to keep pests away. It's kind of like going to war with that piece of land to force this crop to bear fruit. And it's energy intensive, and it doesn't kind of make sense. It's not a living system, as opposed to polyculture. And there's lots of different versions of polyculture, and syntropic farming might be, one of the most integrated and productive ways of producing food crops, where we bring together different plants in an alliance with each other so that they support each other to produce what they've got to give. And that type of living system offers a lot of different outputs that are useful, and it also is very energy efficient and doesn't require, in the longer term, it doesn't require a lot of human intervention to make it work, because it's alive and it needs tending, obviously, but it's alive and it embraces life force in a healthy way. And so that's what I see happen in our people systems as well, where when we have the classic top-down hierarchy, power over reality, it's a forcing of a system that's not alive. It's disembodying the creativity and wisdom and insight and contribution of a lot of parts of the system. If you think of the classic corporation with the bosses at the top and the middle management and then the pleb workers on the bottom, the power is stacked to just a few people, where most of the people in that system don't have a sense of power. And so that's a monocultural kind of system, and it's kind of bound to fall into destruction at some point. It doesn't have life force embedded in it. It has to be forced to work. Whereas when we're in a people system where it's based around power with each other, we get to then be much more creative and constructive with how we activate the different parts and different members inside of that people system. And a corporation can be constructed in this way, very much so. And it's rather about asking people to contribute from their point of expertise and what they really know about and what they're skilled to contribute within. And what we see is the whole system, the whole living system comes online, and we therefore activate so much more resource that's lying latent within us. So in a collective group organizational setting, it's about creating healthy boundaries for where people do and don't have the authority to make decisions. It's not about sociocracy specifically is not about not having hierarchy. There is hierarchy, but it's not a hierarchy of power where one person or small group of people get to tell a bigger group of people what to do or what not to do. Rather, sociocracy works with a hierarchy of perspective. So it will say that, okay, this group of people here are well trained to understand business strategy over the next 5, 10, 15 years, understanding the legal systems and the financial systems and the requirements that make this big organism go over the longer term. So we'll give that authority to make decisions that impact that bigger, broader picture to this group of people, which might classically be the board or the directors, that sort of thing. And then in a sociocracy system, it will say, okay, those people who are managing the databases or the newsletter creation or the systems that kind of help coordinate how we're working together, that might be called the administration circle, the administration team. And those people are the only ones who get to make the decisions about how the database is managed and how the newsletter is sent. And then there'll be another team that are specifically responsible for producing the kombucha that comes out of that system and doing the technical side of that. And other people who are not in these teams can still see inside and understand what's happening inside of these teams, because transparency is a core value of sociocracy. But they can't necessarily get in there and make decisions with these teams, but they can contribute ideas. That's very encouraged. And so this supports effectiveness inside of the bigger organization, because it has the people who have relationship with that activity on an ongoing basis, making decisions about how that activity operates, understanding that there are other departments or teams that they rely on as well, who are also making decisions about those other activities. And it comes together and weaves together in an integrated way through feedback loops between all of these different teams. And in this way, it also encourages equivalence, where no one has more power or less power than anyone else, but power is used within defined areas. And I think that's a really healthy way to be in life. We can see and feel and understand what other people are doing, but if you think about it on an individual level, you can't ever change someone else. We only have power to change and responsibility, perhaps, to change ourselves. And it's kind of that sort of way in an organization. So that, I guess, that's a little tiny snapshot into some of the mechanisms of sociocracy. And I'll also include a very important part of it, which is that decision making is made on the principle of consent. And in consent, we value and welcome people to not be okay with what the decision is, but it needs to be in relationship to the collectively owned aims of what that team or that department are there to do. That's the anchor point. So if someone brings a proposal forward, and a person in that team can see a reason why it won't meet the collectively agreed aims for what they need to be producing and providing, then they're responsible to say that they have an objection to that proposal that will direct how they do the work to get stuff done. And in this way, it's not to be difficult or objectionable. It's actually to pick out a blind spot that other people might not have seen and lean into that diversity of perspective to help the system be even more robust. And so often, and we see this a lot in social permaculture approaches as well, these types of disruptions actually can create really interesting, creative explorations and mutations, so to speak, which actually creates new opportunity. So it's about working with what is and being okay with it not being perfect. One of the taglines that I'm sure you know well, Tennille, that we use in Sociocracy is this good enough for now and safe enough to try? And it's a really powerful, just kind of like life wisdom to carry around. Is this good enough for now and safe enough to try? And in Sociocracy, we're always giving our policy decisions a time frame for review, always. We never make a decision without a time frame and without knowing how we're going to measure it. And this is what brings safety to the system, and it paces the system. The system can't just run away from itself. It actually has to know how it's going to know what success looks like and feels like, and know when it's going to check in to see, is that actually happening? And if it isn't, then we make decisions about how do we move forward and tweak and refine from there. And so I'll just speak quickly to the individual level of work that I do with people. It's very much in a similar sort of way that I've just described from the organizational level. And it's about, the term coach seems to be very loaded, and people might have lots of different perceptions of what that means. So for me, what it means is to partner with someone to support them to explore their own terrain and the parts of themselves that can bring through a bigger more whole living picture for themselves of how they move forward effectively and constructively to do whatever it is they want to do in their lives. And in some ways, you know how it is as a person, you can't see the back of your back. You just can't see that, right? Like it's impossible to see the back of your back without a mirror or without someone else around you pointing things out. So to me, that role of coach is to be able to be in the spirit of and in the practice of presence and mindfulness. And also in my practice, I work with somatic embodiment as well, to explore the places that can't be seen so easily for this particular person around whatever it is they want to be doing, and help them kind of explore it and understand it better and find ways and explore ways that might help them to move forward. So there's a lot of similarity with the collective practice and the individual practice. And I really went into working with individuals from my work with Sociocracy because I'm very aware that a group of people in an organization is filled with individuals, and that collective practice and processes are very powerful, and they do impact the individual, but also individuals have their own terrain and landscape of complexity. We have lots of parts of ourselves that to be understood and connected with, that perhaps the group setting isn't the place for that, for the nuances of that. And I think there's a place for both of it, both collective and individual. Yeah, that's kind of, that's a telling of the general landscape that I tend to work in. And you asked the question, what are the impacts of this? And one of the biggest impacts is the nervous system regulating itself.
We all need that.
Yeah, because when people are met with active listening, with presence, with embodiment, the living organism knows, and care of the nervous system, it knows how to sense and receive safety and to then drop in and access more resources. I have a little bit of an understanding of the technical parts of the nervous system, and what I do know is that there's much more resource and energy available when the parasympathetic nervous system and the ventral vagus nerve is active, and that's what we want, right? We want more creativity and energy and minerals within our body and resources available to help us live life fully. So that's what I notice happening for people. People get their nervous systems become far more parasympathetic, both in the individual work and in the collective work, and it just brings so much more creativity online. And it's just way more exciting, and interesting.
Exciting, interesting, fun.
Yep.
And good for our mind, bodies, our souls. There's there's so much to it, and what a beautiful skill set, and so eloquently explained.
Thank you.
And the individual work, like when we talk about zones in permaculture, it's like, it's a lot to cover in this one interview, but just with, David Holmgren's 12 principles, I could see through like what you said about how John said sociocracy is permaculture for people. I think there's even a book written about it. But when I found it, I was like, wow, I can see how every principle of permaculture, or the 12 that David sort of put together, it's all in it. It's embedded. Like, it's this social decision making and way of being with people is designed into this, and it did. That's the word that I would bring forward, is safety. I felt safe to work with people, and unfortunately, I've got. Fortunately, and it's a gift as well, but to have the range of actually working in a business and organizations with people where safety wasn't there and non-violent communication wasn't there, and all of these things where it was like, my nervous system is getting fried. And so when I found Social Permaculture and I met you and Robin, and I kind of met Robin and found out that she did all this training through doing a course with her in creative teaching to become a permaculture teacher, and that sort of led me down that avenue. And then I think it was you who introduced me to Sociocracy, and it was like, oh wow, this is activism. Like, if we all like, when you talk about the monoculture and stepping into this more diverse way of being and communicating and doing things to reach outcomes where everyone's included and everybody is heard in the safety of a structure that makes people, that is transparent and is accountable and works with people's gifts. And there's so much more to it. I'm just naming some of the things that you brought up.
Yes.
That's revolutionary.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's so far from that triangle of top-down approach and puts everybody on a level playing field, but also draws on the gifts of each person. And I just love it so much. So thank you for doing the work that you do and for coming here and giving, a broader and more detailed explanation to it all, because this Twiggy and I have had, cups of tea, and I've shared a few of the different books that I've got on sociocracy or different forms of social permaculture and decision making. And we've talked about how this would be a really, the sort of way to for decision making and bringing together the Elder Tree project and dream to life. And I've been quite clear in that I have no interest in being on boards or in organizations where people do not bring this in and use sociocracy or aspects of it. Been there, done the other thing, and this is such a powerful tool. So it'd be great to have you up in Far North Queensland again, hopefully sometime this year, and bring more training. I've had quite a few people ask me about it, so I don't feel confident, and I'd love to continue learning beside you. I've done some training, but you've definitely done so much more and have more to bring, so it'd be good to collaborate and bring you up here to our community if you're up with that. Yay! Cool. So there are just a few other things I wanted to mention. So you bring in like the Social Permaculture toolkit to the Change-makers PDC as one of the teachers.
Yes.
You present at festivals. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yes. So the Change-makers Permaculture Design Course happens at Crystal Waters Eco Village in Conondale, which is not far from Mullaney in southeast Queensland, headed up by Annalise Horden. And we've got a beautiful team of permaculture practitioners who bring their expertise into the mix. So it's a great diversity of voices and lived experience that people get to learn with in a living space such as Crystal Waters. And it's such an honor to speak to social permaculture and a little bit of sociocracy there, and kind of give a little microdose of what's possible. And I love going to festivals, and I love speaking at festivals. I think festivals actually have quite an important social function in broader society. They bring it's like a big beehive where we get to pollinate each other, and I think that's very important. And I had the pleasure of filling a space at the Earth Frequency Festival last year, and I got to speak to the living rhythm concept, which is not my concept, that's my name for it, of the wheel of life and how we can identify it and work with it. And I just think it's so important that we get to hear new concepts and new ways in person, and get to let our nervous systems come together and regulate together around these things. And it's super exciting and inspiring for me. So I've done a few different things in the festival space, and always love when that opportunity comes around.
Yay. Yeah, on the whole nervous system. I love festivals as well. We tend to be at quite a few with Blake's VJ work, and I do some workshopping as well using the Gaia-craft card set and in a collaborative way. So the things that I have learned in those social permaculture workshops with you and Robin, I've brought into my festival workshops as well. And it is, just that one little tool of, hey, we've got this smorgasbord of thought-provoking questions in front of us that's been put together by permaculture pioneers around the world. But what we're doing here is we're in a circle and we are sharing from our hearts and we are being heard. We are speaking our truth and we are being heard. And I just hold that space, and it's so beautiful what comes out and through that. And I think, you know, the combination of music, dancing, people like yourself and me, and many more sharing these different perspectives and ways of thinking and introducing new concepts, and mostly not wearing shoes and earthing out on the ground. It's like they can be such healing experiences, especially when you take away you know, or and also just the plant medicines perhaps that that come into it as well. But
Yeah,
it's very
it's
different to raves. If people have the perspective that a festival is a rave where everyone gets on it and just dances and drinks lots of water, it's like I've had to debunk that for some family members. That no, it's it's a beehive, and there's just so much collaboration and leaving with a new evolved state, I feel.
Absolutely. I mean, I think I met you at a festival for the very first time in at the Eclipse Festival in Far North Queensland in 2012.
Ah.
And yeah, you know, like when you go to the sort of lifestyle festivals, I guess is the word you put to it, that we like to go to, it has depth and it engages the whole body, mind, soul, spirit side of a person. It can engage that. Whereas a rave maybe does to some degree, but it's you know, it's much more augmented and contrived. Perhaps that's a way to say it. But yeah, I'm down with the juicy, beautiful chaos of what we like to dance in. And literally, you know, I think just to be embodied, to be in your body, dancing on the earth, and then seeing beautiful visionary art and hearing concepts coming through someone's presentation that open you up to a whole different way of being. It's just, there's nothing quite like it.
Yes, the juicy workshop space. You'll find me there for sure. Hey, on your awesome website, you've got a couple of ebooks. You've got the Introductory Guide to Social Permaculture. So that's, I guess your explanation of nature-informed principles of permaculture to create and accelerate people care for people, like the individuals and the collective. And then you also have a seasonal goals and living, like a living guide to seasonal goals, which I downloaded many years ago, and I loved it. The step-by-step process for actioning and reviewing goals. I could see all the principles embedded in that as well. So I just wanted to sort of plant those seeds for listeners if they wanted to learn more about, you know, get an overview of social permaculture as a goal, and also working within the seasons and using that, you know, coming back into that zone 0, where we're working with the patterns of nature in terms of the yearly cycles and season and placement of the sun, and what that, you know, how that changes our lifestyle and how we feel and what is being expressed externally when we tune into those bigger systems and patterns, and how we can use that energy within ourselves for growth. So awesome. So beautifully communicated.
Good. I'm so glad you appreciate them. Yeah, they're small. There's just small contributions of little micro doses of insight. So thank you for sharing them.
Of course, yeah. I'll pop that in the show notes too. So we've spoken for an hour now, and it feels like 5 minutes. I feel like I could chat with you in this space forever. So let's do that again sometime in the future. Have you up here and in person, sharing with our community. But before we go and close off today's interview, is there anything else that you'd like to share, Erin?
The thing that's there with me in my heart is to remind every one of us that we are autonomous, complex living, adaptive systems. And there is so much power that just innately comes with being alive right here and right now. And we have so much capacity. There's so much opportunity to make anything happen that we want if we bring in the right conditions to stimulate our creativity and our clarity and our groundedness and our effectiveness. And it's often so much simpler than we realize. So I just really want to encourage every single one of us, and me included, to keep remembering that we have so much available to us, and to find the way that helps that to be easy for that to come through and into the world, because this is what life wants. In my perspective, it wants us to be alive and to be in that the juicy aliveness of what turns us on as living beings. So yeah, that's my final contribution.
Yeah, a really powerful one. Thank you. And I think, like you said, the simplicity, and it's actually easier than we think. Just have a nice cup of lemongrass tea, harvest it yourself, weave it a little bit. And yeah, the more we spend time with the plants and nature, we get our nervous system chills, and we can step into all of these other aspects. And that permaculture is, it is the plants and land and nature stewardship is one of the many petals. So thank you for your work in the community governance and the social permaculture realm. And appreciate everything you've shared today, and look forward to our next catch up.
Same. So do I, Tennille. Thank you so much for having me. I so appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks, Erin. Bye now.
Bye.
The Elder Tree is a not-for-profit organisation that is in the beginning stages of creating a grassroots herbal education centre and healing sanctuary in the Atherton Tablelands of Far North Queensland. To find out more, go to theeldertree.org and follow the journey on Instagram and Facebook. You can also donate to the Elder Tree via our podcast channel on Anchor or via the website. If you like the episode, we'd love you to subscribe. And if you know who we should interview next, drop us a line. See you next month, and in the meantime, may you grow them to know them and be blessed with good health and many plants.